Hello, everyone. This is Charles Walter Buntjer coming to you from San Francisco. It's July 2025, and this video is about my birthday in Washington, D.C. This was in 2004, and I was 64 years old. Now, a little story before I get into the actual trip. In '99, I was on the cruise at the tip of South America, Chile, going into Argentina at the Straits of Magellan, and I met a woman, Vivian, who had a house in Beverly Hills. We hit it off and became friends. That was in April of 1999. December, she called me up and said she set up plans for us to fly to Vienna and celebrate the Millennium New Year. Sounded good to me. I was just finishing the Y2K fix for Bank of America. Off we flew. What a wonderful time. Then she called me the next year and said, why don't you get ready for the real Millennium New Year 2001? She said, I set it up for us. We're going to fly to Morocco and we're going to go all around the entire country by train and see all the major spots. Well, that sounded good to me. Now, I was flying back and forth to Beverly Hills every so often to meet her and her friends in Beverly Hills, and I was starting to get mileage on Southwest. And then around 2002 or so, she called me up and said she was buying another business. This was going to be a 6-bed elderly care residence. She said I could go and get a administrative license to run an elderly care facility. She'd pay for all the expenses, and then I could fly back and forth down to LA, and she would pick me up, or else I could rent a car, and I could run the elderly care facility while she went away on business trips or went to visit her family in Belgium. Such a deal. All expenses paid. Then she'd come back and spend a few extra days with me, and we'd go to the Beverly Hills Hotel for lunch, or the Getty Museum, or other places and points of interest. Then I decided for my 64th birthday to go to Washington, D.C. Now it's February 4th, and I was wondering how the weather was going to be, but I thought, well, I want to go someplace. So I checked, and I had enough mileage to get a free airline ticket to Washington, D.C. Such a deal. Then Vivian called me up and she said, oh, I see you're going to D.C. for 5 days or so. She said, I just got you a hotel near the White House, and I'll pay for that. I said, ooh, what a friend. I said, free airfare and free hotel. Now, let's get on to the actual trip itself. I got to the airport and took a cab to the hotel, and it was called the Club Quarter Hotel. Large complex. People were very, very nice inside, and they said if I needed any tours or anything, they could help me set it up. And I didn't find out till a little later. I wanted to do something that was quite a ways away from the mall itself, and I asked them about the subway system and the metro, and they laughed. They said, walk out the front door, turn right, go to the corner, turn right, and right in the middle of the hotel, there's a big entrance, and you go down that, and the subway is underneath the hotel. Talk about close. My friend Vivian knew what she was doing when she got this hotel for me. So I started my big walk all over. I went to the Hirshhorn Museum, which is very interesting. Um, I always wanted to see that because they have the very latest modern art. As you can see, this car with a big rock that crushed it with these eyes looking out like, how did this happen? Then I decided I was going to walk over to the Arlington Cemetery. Now, the Arlington Cemetery is very interesting, and it has the unknown soldier tomb, and it has the Arlington House. And I had walked from my hotel to the White House to the middle of the mall, and then from the mall over, I went past the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Monument, the Lincoln Monument, the Korean Memorial, the Vietnam Wall, and then I got up to the top of the hill across the river at the cemetery and went through the house. And then I walked back down the hill across the bridge, way into the center of the mall. And then I turned and went north, and I stopped at the gates that enclosed the White House. And I went to take a picture, and a couple of military men came along and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I just came from the Arlington Cemetery and I was going to take a picture because my hotel is only 2 or 3 blocks north of here, the Club Quarter." They just looked at each other and looked at me and said, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm 64. It's my birthday." They said, "Well, happy birthday, but where did you go?" I said I walked from my hotel down to the mall and then across the river and up the hill and back down again across past all the memorials. And it was almost 6 o'clock at night. It was getting dark. And there was about a foot of snow all over. But the good thing was it was cool, but no wind. Well, anyway, the two soldiers looked at me and shook their head. And I said, "Well, what's wrong?" They said, "You're the first person we ever met that actually walked from here all the way up there and all the way back." They said, "You must be in good shape." I said, "Thank you." And they said, "Well, take your picture and then off to the hotel." So off to the hotel I went. Wonderful day. Now, the Club Quarter Hotel was also in a prime location, not only the White House, but if you went just north for a few blocks, you were in Dupont Circle. Dupont Circle has all those old houses, and they have coffee shops, uh, all kinds of antique shops, art exhibitions, all kinds of things that you could buy, sell, or just look at. So that was really a great time. I spent most of the day just walking around doing all that. Now, I decided at the last day that I was going to go to the airport, but I went down into the metro subway and I ended up at the Union Station uh, where you could take a train that went out to the airport. The Union train station is very interesting. It's just like in the subway system, they have all these places where you can sit, you can have coffee, and some places you could have meals and everything. Talk about ritzy, my. So anyway, back home I came and I had a really wonderful trip. And I don't think that I actually had anything special for my birthday. They did supply some wine for me at the hotel, and I did have a dinner there, uh, which was interesting, but not as exciting as some of the birthdays I've had. But it was a great way to see the city, and especially I wanted to see the National Air and Space Museum. That was one of my favorites. So much for that. So I hope you enjoy this and how I ended up going there and getting free airline and free hotels.